Chapter 1. The Architect. Gregory Perkins had built empires in code. At 42, he sat in his corner office on the 19th floor of Boyd Technologies, watching the Dallas skyline turn amber in the late afternoon sun. The office wasn't large. Roger Boyd didn't believe in lavish spaces for technical staff, but the view was Gregory's reward for 19 years of unwavering loyalty. 19 years of building what Roger took credit for. Gregory's fingers moved across his keyboard with practiced efficiency, executing a routine security audit. Most people didn't understand what a principal cloud architect actually did. His wife Victoria certainly didn't, though she tried. She saw the long hours, the 2 a.m. emergency calls, the weekends spent in the office. What she didn't see was the artistry, the elegant solutions to impossible problems, the infrastructure that kept an $800 million company running smoothly across 4 continents. He'd started at Boyd Technologies fresh out of MIT, a 23-year-old with more ambition than sense. Back then, the company was barely scraping by, Roger's father's manufacturing business on the brink of collapse. Gregory had pitched Roger on digital transformation before it was a buzzword. He'd built their first server room in a converted janitor's closet. He'd personally installed every piece of hardware, written half the original codebase himself. The company now employed over 2,000 people. Gregory had hired and trained most of the technical staff. Every system, every protocol, every redundancy. His fingerprints were everywhere. His phone buzzed. "Victoria, Dad wants us for dinner Sunday. Please try to be nice." Gregory smiled bitterly. Be nice. As if he were the problem. Roger Boyd had never forgiven Gregory for one simple fact. He'd married Victoria without asking permission. 8 years ago, Roger had planned for his daughter to marry Ken Schroeder, a hedge fund manager's son. Old money courting new money. Instead, Victoria had fallen for the IT guy who'd fixed her laptop at the company Christmas party. Roger had skipped their wedding. He'd been civil since, barely. Gregory was useful after all. Indispensable, even. But Roger had never let him forget his place. No equity. No board seat. Just a salary and the occasional grudging acknowledgement when investors asked technical questions Roger couldn't answer. Gregory. He looked up to find Marco Wilkins standing in his doorway, the chief operating officer and Roger's actual son-in-law, married to Victoria's older sister Caroline. Marco was everything Roger wanted. Harvard MBA, country club pedigree, a talent for corporate politics that Gregory found exhausting. "Marco, what can I do for you?" Marco's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just wanted to give you a heads up. Board meeting tomorrow. Dad's announcing the acquisition." Gregory nodded. The acquisition of TechCore Solutions had been in the works for 6 months. Gregory had spent countless hours on due diligence, making sure their systems could integrate. His retention bonus, $215,000, promised in writing, was tied to seeing it through the transition period. For more days until it paid out. "I'm ready," Gregory said. "Migration plan is solid. We'll have 0 downtime." "Of course you are." Marco's tone carried something Gregory couldn't quite place. "You always are." After Marco left, Gregory returned to his audit logs. Something had been nagging at him for weeks. Unusual access patterns. Files being copied. Nothing overtly malicious, but odd. He pulled up the activity reports and cross-referenced them with user credentials. His stomach dropped. The access patterns traced back to Roger's executive account and Marco's. They'd been systematically copying everything. Client lists, proprietary algorithms, Gregory's own architectural documentation. The timestamps showed it had been going on for 3 months. Gregory sat back, his mind racing. This wasn't corporate paranoia. This was data theft. But why would Roger steal from his own company? Unless he opened a new terminal window and ran a deeper search, this time looking at corporate filings, shell companies, recent trademark applications. 20 minutes later, he had his answer. Roger and Marco had registered a new company, NextGen Infrastructure LLC. Same business model as Boyd Technologies. Same target market. They'd been planning to spin off with Boyd's intellectual property and client base, leaving the original company a hollowed-out shell. And they'd been documenting everything in Gregory's name. The paper trail they'd created would make it look like Gregory had been the one stealing. He'd be the scapegoat when the board discovered the theft. Roger would fire him for cause, void his retention bonus, and possibly pursue criminal charges to cover their own tracks. Gregory's phone buzzed again. Victoria. Also, anniversary's coming up. I was thinking maybe we could go to that place in Napa you liked. He looked at the message for a long moment, then at the evidence on his screen. Victoria didn't know. She couldn't know. She saw her father as demanding, but ultimately well-intentioned. She'd never believe Roger would destroy Gregory's career to save himself. Gregory closed his laptop and stood, looking out at the Dallas skyline one more time. 19 years. He'd given them everything. Now he'd take it all back. Chapter 2. The Setup. The next morning, Gregory arrived at the office at 5:30 a.m. The building was nearly empty, just security and a few ambitious associates trying to impress management. Gregory nodded to Doug Stone at the front desk. Doug had worked security for 15 years, and Gregory had helped his daughter get a coding scholarship. Early start, Mr. Perkins? Big day ahead, Gregory said with a smile that felt like broken glass. In his office, he worked quickly. Everything he was about to do had to look routine. Just another day of system maintenance. He started by documenting everything. Screenshots of the stolen files, access logs, the shell company formation documents. He encrypted it all and stored it in 3 separate locations. A personal cloud server, a physical drive in a safety deposit box he'd rented that morning, and with his attorney, Clint Frederick, an old college friend who specialized in corporate litigation. Then came the delicate part. Boyd Technologies' entire infrastructure ran on a hybrid cloud system Gregory had designed. Public-facing services on AWS, sensitive data on private servers, all orchestrated through a proprietary management platform Gregory had built from scratch over the past decade. The platform's core licensing was registered under Gregory Perkins Consulting LLC, a small technical services company he'd set up years ago for tax purposes. Boyd Technologies had an unlimited license, but it was specific. It granted usage rights only while Gregory was an active employee or contractor. Roger's lawyers had reviewed it a dozen times over the years. They'd always concluded it was fine. After all, why would Gregory ever leave? Gregory opened the licensing system. With a few keystrokes, he added a dead man's switch, a piece of code that would check every 6 hours whether his employee credentials were active. If they weren't, the license would automatically revoke after a 24-hour grace period. It was perfectly legal. Aggressive, maybe, but legal. He tested it in a sandbox environment. Flawless. The board meeting started at 9 a.m. Gregory wasn't invited. Technical staff never were, but he could watch the conference room from his office. Through the glass walls, he saw Roger at the head of the table, Marco to his right. The board members looked pleased as Roger presented the acquisition. TechCore's CEO, a nervous woman named Pamela Dudley, kept glancing at the documents in front of her. The meeting ran 90 minutes. Gregory kept working, implementing the second phase of his plan. He'd been Boyd Technologies' sole administrator for the licensing platform, but he'd always maintained personal credentials separate from his work account. Now he transferred all administrative functions to his personal account and removed his work credentials entirely. If they locked him out of Boyd Technologies systems, they'd have no way to manage the platform that ran those systems. At 11:17 a.m., his desk phone rang. Roger's secretary. Mr. Perkins? Mr. Boyd would like to see you in his office. I'll be right there. Gregory saved his work, logged out, and stood. His heart was hammering, but his hands were steady. He'd spent 3 months in Afghanistan as a systems contractor right after college. He'd learned to stay calm under pressure. Roger's office took up half the 20th floor. Mahogany everything, a wet bar, original artwork that Roger didn't understand but knew was expensive. Marco sat in one of the leather chairs, looking smug. Roger didn't stand. Closed the door. Gregory did. I'm going to make this simple, Roger said, leaning back in his chair. The acquisition went through. We don't need duplicate technical staff, and TechCore's people are already integrated with their systems. Your position is redundant. Gregory said nothing. You'll receive 2 weeks severance. Sign the separation agreement, and we'll process it today. My retention bonus, Gregory said quietly. The agreement specified payment upon successful acquisition completion. The acquisition is complete. Roger smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Read the fine print, son. The bonus is payable upon successful integration and 90 days of post-acquisition stability. Since you won't be here for that period, the condition can't be met. Marco pulled out a document. We'll need you to sign an NDA, return all company property, and revoke any external access credentials you might have. Gregory looked at the separation agreement. 2 weeks severance for 19 years. And buried in the legalese, a clause that would prevent him from working in the industry for 2 years. You're firing me 4 days before my bonus pays out, Gregory said. Not a question. Economics, Roger said with a shrug. Nothing personal. You understand business, don't you? Gregory met his father-in-law's eyes. Roger looked pleased with himself. This was revenge for Victoria, for every board meeting where Roger had needed Gregory's expertise, for every time a client had praised Gregory's work. What about Victoria? Gregory asked. What about her? Roger's smile widened. You think my daughter won't understand? Boyd Technologies is her legacy. You were just temporary help. She'll get over you. Marco stood, holding out a pen. We need you out of the building in 20 minutes. Security will escort you. Gregory took the pen. He looked at the documents, at the clauses designed to destroy him professionally and financially. Then he signed. Roger blinked, surprised. He'd expected a fight. Smart choice, Marco said, gathering the papers. Gregory stood. I'll need time to document the transition. The systems are complex. TechCore's people will figure it out, Roger interrupted. They're very competent. 20 minutes, Marco repeated. Gregory nodded and walked out. He didn't go back to his office. Instead, he went to the server room on the 18th floor. He badged in. His credentials were still active for the next few hours, and approached the main console. The infrastructure hummed around him, thousands of processes running smoothly. His life's work. He pulled out his phone and opened a terminal app. One command, executed remotely to his personal server. The dead man switch-armed. Then he did go to his office. Doug from security was waiting, looking uncomfortable. Sorry, Mr. Perkins. Orders. I understand, Doug. Gregory packed his personal items. Photos of Victoria. A coffee mug from his MIT graduation. A drawing that Victoria's nephew had made for him. 19 years fit into a single cardboard box. As he walked to the elevator, past colleagues who suddenly found their computer screens fascinating, Gregory felt a strange calm. Roger thought he'd won. He had no idea the game had just begun. Chapter 3. The Call. Gregory drove home in silence. The house was empty. Victoria was at her yoga class, which gave him time to think. He set the cardboard box in his home office and sat at his desk, staring at nothing. His phone buzzed. Victoria, how's your day going? We still good for lunch tomorrow? He couldn't tell her yet. Not until he knew how she'd react. Not until he had leverage. Something came up at work. I'll explain tonight. He spent the afternoon preparing. Called Clint Frederick and sent him the full documentation. Contacted a few former colleagues who'd left Boyd Technologies and started their own ventures. They'd always said Gregory should join them. Checked his finances. He and Victoria had been careful. They could survive a few months without his income. At 6 p.m., Victoria came home. She found him in the kitchen, making dinner like everything was normal. You're home early, she said, kissing his cheek. She smelled like lavender and expensive shampoo. I thought you'd be buried in the acquisition. We need to talk, Gregory said. Her smile faded. That sounds ominous. Over dinner, he told her. Not everything. Not about the dead man's switch or his plans, but the basics. Her father had fired him. For days before his bonus. After 19 years. Victoria's reaction was exactly what he'd feared. There must be a misunderstanding, she said. Dad wouldn't. He knows how hard you've worked. Let me call him. Victoria. No, this is ridiculous. You built half that company. I'll straighten this out. She pulled out her phone. Gregory watched as she called her father, her expression moving from confidence to confusion to hurt. He's not answering, she said finally. That's unusual. Her phone buzzed. A text. Gregory couldn't see it, but he watched Victoria's face change. What did he say? He says it was a business decision. That I need to understand priorities. Her voice was small. He's never ignored my calls before. Gregory took her hand. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. This isn't right. She was getting angry now, which was better than hurt. We'll fight this. We'll get lawyers. I already have one. Clint Frederick. The guy from your fraternity? Greg, this is serious. We need a real attorney. Clint is a real attorney. He handles corporate litigation for Schneider and Associates. Victoria stood, pacing. My father can't just, after everything you've done. She turned to Gregory. What are we going to do? We're going to be smart, Gregory said. And patient. That night, Victoria tried calling her father twice more. Both times, the call went to voicemail. Gregory lay awake, watching the clock. At 11:47 p.m., his personal email chimed. An automated message from his licensing platform. Employee credentials for Perkins at boydtech.com. Inactive. License revocation timer. 24 hours. He smiled in the darkness. Victoria left early the next morning to confront her father in person. Gregory let her go. She needed to see Roger's true colors herself. He spent the morning setting up the second phase. Called in favors from old contacts. Reached out to Boyd Technology's biggest clients. People he'd worked with personally for years, and mentioned casually that he was exploring new opportunities. 3 of them asked if he'd be interested in consulting work. At 2 p.m., Victoria came home. Her eyes were red. He said, "You're a distraction," she said quietly. "That I should focus on family." He meant the Boyd family, not you. Gregory pulled her close. "I'm sorry. Caroline was there." She agreed with him. "Said you were lucky to get severance at all." Victoria's voice broke. "Marco called you low-level technical staff." "Hey," Gregory said softly. "Look at me. We're going to be fine." "How?" "He's freezing us out. Caroline won't return my calls. My own sister. Because they're scared." Victoria pulled back. "Of what?" "Of what I know. What I built. What I can do." "Greg, you're scaring me a little." He cupped her face. "Trust me. Just for a few days. Trust me." She searched his eyes and nodded slowly. That night, Gregory barely slept. He kept checking his phone, watching the countdown. At 5:47 a.m., the timer hit 0. All Boyd Technologies licenses, revoked. Gregory got up, made coffee, and waited. The first call came at 6:03 a.m. TechCore's CTO, Jerome Sutton. Gregory let it go to voicemail. Then Marco. Voicemail. Then a number he didn't recognize. Voicemail. By 6:15, he had 47 missed calls. At 6:23, Roger Boyd himself called. Gregory answered on the 4th ring. "What did you do?" Roger's scream was loud enough that Victoria stirred in the bedroom. "Good morning, Roger," Gregory said calmly. "How can I help you?" "Every server is down. Worldwide. The licensing platform is rejecting everything. Fix it now." "I'm afraid I can't do that." "The hell you can't. You built this system." "I built it under Gregory Perkins Consulting LLC. Boyd Technologies had an unlimited license contingent on my active employment or contractor status. You terminated my employment yesterday. The license revoked automatically after the standard 24-hour grace period. It's all in the agreement your lawyers reviewed." Silence. Gregory could practically hear Roger's mind racing. "You son of a..." "Careful, Roger. That's your son-in-law you're talking about." "What do you want?" Gregory smiled. "We should meet. In person. But not at your office. I'm no longer welcome there. Let's say the Fairmont, lobby bar, 9 a.m. You're going to fix this." 9 a.m., Roger. "Come alone." Gregory hung up. Victoria stood in the doorway, wrapped in a robe. "What just happened?" "Leverage," Gregory said. "I just got leverage." Chapter 4. The Negotiation. The Fairmont's lobby bar was nearly empty at 9 a.m. on a Thursday. Gregory sat in a corner booth, watching the entrance. He'd arrived 30 minutes early, ordered coffee, and reviewed his notes one final time. Roger arrived at 8:57, not alone. Marco was with him, along with a man Gregory didn't recognize, mid-50s, expensive suit, carrying a briefcase. Lawyer, definitely. They slid into the booth across from Gregory. "You have some nerve," Roger started. Gregory held up a hand. "Before we begin, I should mention I'm recording this conversation. Texas is a one-party consent state, so that's perfectly legal. Just want everything documented." The lawyer, Roger introduced him as Larry Scott from Bennett and Associates, frowned but said nothing. "Now," Gregory said, "let's discuss your situation." "Our situation?" Marco's voice was sharp. "You sabotaged the company. I revoked a license to my personal intellectual property. Perfectly legal. Larry can confirm." Gregory looked at the lawyer, who shifted uncomfortably. "The license agreement does appear to be enforceable," Larry admitted. Roger's jaw clenched. "What do you want?" Gregory pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. "I want what I earned. My full retention bonus, $215,000. My unvested stock options, another $180,000 at current valuation. A consulting contract for 12 months at my previous salary. and a public acknowledgement of my contributions to Boyd Technology's success. Roger laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You're out of your mind. Am I? Let's do some math. Gregory leaned forward. Boyd Technologies has approximately 2,000 employees globally. Average loaded cost per employee is around $120,000 when you factor in benefits. That's $240,000 per day the company's paying for people who can't work because the systems are down. We're at hour 26 right now. You've already lost over $2.5 million in productivity. We have the tech core team, who have no access to the licensing platform, who don't understand the architecture, who are, right now, frantically trying to reverse engineer something that took me a decade to build. Gregory smiled. How's that going, by the way? Marco's expression answered the question. Then there's client impact, Gregory continued. Boyd Technologies has SLA agreements with 97 enterprise clients. Those contracts specify 99.9% uptime. You're currently at 0%. The penalty clauses alone will cost you tens of millions. And that's before clients start jumping ship entirely. Larry Scott was taking notes, his expression increasingly grim. And finally, Gregory said, there's the stock price. Markets open in 30 minutes. How do you think investors will react when they learn the company's entire infrastructure is offline because you fired the architect 4 days before his retention bonus? Roger's face had gone from red to pale. You're blackmailing us. I'm negotiating fair compensation for my work. There's a difference. We could sue you into oblivion. You could try, but litigation takes months. You have hours before this becomes catastrophic. Gregory finished his coffee. Of course, there is another option. What option? Roger asked. You could explain to the board why you and Marco have been copying proprietary data to create a competing company. I have documentation, access logs, the shell company formation papers for NextGen Infrastructure LLC. Marco went white. That's a lie, Roger said, but his voice lacked conviction. Gregory pulled out his phone and scrolled through screenshots. These are access logs showing systematic data exfiltration over 3 months, all tied to your credentials. Want me to forward these to the board? Or maybe to the SEC? Might be interested in the insider trading implications. Larry Scott's pen stopped moving. Mr. Boyd, I think we should speak privately. No, Roger said. This little punk thinks he's smart. You want to go to war? Fine. We'll freeze every penny you have. We'll sue you for damages. We'll make sure you never work in this industry again. You'll lose everything, including Victoria. Gregory met Roger's eyes. Victoria already knows I was fired. She knows you're freezing her out. She spent yesterday crying because her own father chose money over family. He leaned forward. You've already lost her, Roger. The only question is whether you lose the company too. The silence stretched. Finally, Larry Scott cleared his throat. Perhaps we could discuss a compromise. No compromise, Gregory said. Everything I listed, or I walk out of here and you can watch your company burn. You do that? Marco asked. Destroy 2,000 jobs? People's livelihoods. I built those jobs. I protected those livelihoods for 19 years. You destroyed them the moment you decided to steal from your own company and frame me for it. Gregory stood. You have until noon. After that, my offer expires and this gets very public. He walked out, leaving them in the booth. His phone rang before he reached his car. Victoria. Greg, Dad's assistant just called. He wants to meet with me. Says it's urgent. Don't go. What? What? Because he's going to try to turn you against me. He's going to say I'm holding the company hostage, that I'm being unreasonable. He'll make me the villain. Are you? Holding the company hostage. Gregory took a breath. I'm making them pay what they owe me. After they tried to steal everything and frame me for it. After your father called me temporary help. He said that. Ask him yourself. Victoria was quiet for a moment. What did you do, Greg? Really? I protected us. That's all. I protected us from people who only care about money and power. I need time to think, she said, and hung up. Gregory sat in his car, hands on the steering wheel, and allowed himself one moment of doubt. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Larry Scott. Meeting at 2 p.m. Bring your lawyer. We'll discuss terms. Gregory smiled and pulled out of the parking lot. Chapter 5. The Revelation. Clint Frederick met Gregory outside the Bennett and Associates office building at 1:45 p.m. You sure about this? Clint asked. He was tall, runner lean, with the careful eyes of someone who'd spent 20 years reading fine print. These guys are going to come at you hard. Let them. Greg, I've known you since freshman year. I've never seen you like this. Like what? Cold. Calculating. Clint studied his friend. What aren't you telling me? Gregory handed him a flash drive. Everything's on there. The data theft. The shell company. The paper trail they created to frame me. I need you to have it, just in case. In case of what? In case they try something desperate. The conference room was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A table that could seat 20. Artwork that probably cost more than Gregory's car. Roger and Marco sat on one side with Larry Scott and two other attorneys. A woman Gregory didn't recognize sat at the end of the table with a stenographer. That's Christy Lamb, Clint whispered. Mediator. They want this official. Everyone sat. Christy Lamb outlined the process. Voluntary mediation, confidential, designed to reach an equitable settlement. Mr. Perkins, she began. Could you state your position? Gregory had prepared for this. He outlined his demands clearly and calmly, presenting documentation for each point. His retention bonus, his stock options, the consulting contract, public acknowledgement. And in exchange, Christie said, you would restore access to the licensing platform within 1 hour of signed agreement and verified payment of my retention bonus. Roger leaned forward. That's extortion. Mr. Boyd, Christie said gently. Let's keep this productive. Larry Scott opened a folder. We've prepared a counteroffer. Boyd Technologies will pay Mr. Perkins his retention bonus, the full $215,000, plus an additional $50,000 as a gesture of goodwill. In exchange, he will immediately restore all system access and sign a comprehensive NDA and non-compete agreement. No stock options? Gregory asked. No consulting contract? No acknowledgement. The stock options were contingent on continued employment. They vested incrementally over my 19 years of service. I earned them. And the consulting contract is unnecessary, Marco interrupted. We have TechCore's team now. Gregory turned to the stenographer. Please note that Mr. Wilkins just admitted they don't need my expertise, yet their entire infrastructure has been down for over 30 hours. Marco's jaw clenched. As for the NDA, Clint said, we'd need to review the specific language. If it's designed to prevent Mr. Perkins from discussing illegal activities. What illegal activities? Larry Scott's voice was sharp. Gregory pulled out his own folder. The systematic theft of proprietary data. The shell company formation. The attempt to frame me for corporate espionage. He slid documents across the table. These are access logs showing Roger and Marco copying over 47 terabytes of data to personal drives. Client lists. Algorithms. Architecture documentation. Roger's face went red. That's company data. We have every right. You have a right to access it for company purposes, not to copy it for a competing venture. Gregory pulled out more papers. NextGen Infrastructure LLC. Filed 3 months ago. Officers, Roger Boyd, Marco Wilkins, and Caroline Boyd Wilkins. Business purpose, cloud architecture and infrastructure services. Larry Scott was reading the documents, his expression darkening. This is your big leverage. Roger sneered. So what if we're starting a new company? That's not illegal. It is when you're stealing from your existing company to do it, Clint said. It's called corporate theft. And the fact that you created a false paper trail attributing the data access to Gregory, that's fraud. And possibly criminal conspiracy. That's absurd, Marco said. But he looked at Larry Scott nervously. Is it? Gregory pulled out more documentation. These are system logs showing my work credentials being used to access files I've never opened. Except the logs also show my physical keycard was used to enter my office at the same time, which would be physically impossible since the server room and my office are on different floors. Someone cloned my credentials. Larry Scott held up a hand. Mr. Boyd, I need to speak with you and Mr. Wilkins privately. No, Roger said. We're not done here. Now, Mr. Boyd. They left the conference room. Gregory and Clint sat in silence. That went well, Clint said dryly. It's not over. What do you think they'll offer? Everything. Or nothing. Roger doesn't do halfway measures. 15 minutes later, they returned. Roger looked like he'd aged a decade. Marco wouldn't meet Gregory's eyes. Larry Scott spoke. My clients are willing to meet your demands with some modifications. The retention bonus and stock options will be paid in full. The consulting contract will be for 6 months, not 12. And rather than public acknowledgement, we'll provide a confidential letter of reference. No, Gregory said. Mr. Perkins, 12 months. And the acknowledgement needs to be public. A press release. Something the industry will see. That's unreasonable, Marco started. Gregory stood. Then we're done here. Christy, thank you for your time. He looked at Roger. You have until 5 p.m. After that, I'm sending everything to the board and the SEC. Wait, Roger said. His voice was hoarse. Sit down. Gregory remained standing. 12 months, Roger said. And we'll issue a press release acknowledging your contributions. And the data theft investigation stops, Larry Scott added quickly. No SEC filings. No board notifications. This ends here. Gregory looked at Clint, who nodded slightly. Draft the agreement, Gregory said. I want it by 4 p.m. At 3:47 p.m., Gregory's phone buzzed. Victoria, where are you? We need to talk. In a meeting. Home by 6. Make it sooner. Something in her tone worried him, but Clint was reviewing the final contract language, and Gregory needed to focus. The agreement was 47 pages. Clint read every word, occasionally flagging sections for modification. The lawyers went back and forth. Finally, at 4:52 p.m., everyone signed. Gregory pulled out his laptop. I need to verify payment first. That could take hours, Marco protested. Wire transfers are instantaneous. I'll wait. At 5:09 p.m., Gregory's bank account showed a deposit of $215,000. He verified the stock option transfer documents. Then he opened his licensing platform and restored Boyd Technologies access. Done, he said. Your systems should be online within 10 minutes. Roger stood without a word and walked out. Marco followed. Larry Scott shook Gregory's hand. That was impressive and terrifying. Just business, Gregory said. Outside, Clint stopped him. What now? Now I go home and save my marriage. Is it that bad? Gregory thought about Victoria's text. I hope not. He drove home, rehearsing what to say, but when he walked in, the house was dark. Victoria? She emerged from the bedroom, suitcase in hand. I need space, she said. A few days at Caroline's. Caroline's? Victoria, she's part of. I know about the company. About the data theft. Her voice broke. I confronted Dad and Caroline this afternoon. They admitted everything. Said you were blackmailing them, that you'd destroy the family business out of spite. That's not. Then Caroline showed me texts. Between you and her old roommate, Pamela. From 6 months ago. Gregory's stomach dropped. Pamela Dudley. TechCore's CEO. Victoria, those texts were about the acquisition. Due diligence. They looked like more than that, Greg. Dinner meetings. Late-night conversations. Caroline said Pamela told her you two were close. We had working dinners. I was evaluating TechCore's systems. That's all. Victoria set down her suitcase. I want to believe you. I do. But you've been lying to me, haven't you? About what you were planning. About the leverage. You've been 10 steps ahead this whole time, and I didn't even know we were playing a game. I was protecting us. By going to war with my family. Your family went to war with me first. They stood in the kitchen, years of unspoken tensions suddenly visible. I need time, Victoria said quietly, to figure out who you really are. Because the man who just brought my father to his knees? I don't know him. Victoria, please. Please let me go. Gregory stepped aside. He watched her load the suitcase into her car and drive away. Then he went inside, sat on the couch, and allowed himself to feel the cost of his victory. Chapter 6. The Trap. 3 days passed. Gregory threw himself into work, consulting contracts with Boyd Technologies' former clients, building relationships, planning his next move. The press release had gone out. Boyd Technologies acknowledges 19 years of dedication from principal cloud architect Gregory Perkins. Industry contacts reached out. Job offers arrived. But the house felt empty. Victoria texted occasionally. Brief messages. She was okay. She needed more time. Caroline was helping her sort through things. That last part worried Gregory. Caroline, who'd been complicit in the data theft. Caroline, who had every reason to poison Victoria against him. On the 4th day, Clint called. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Boyd Technologies is alleging breach of contract. They're claiming you violated the NDA by discussing confidential company information with competitors. That's insane. I haven't. They have evidence. Emails. Recording of a phone call where you supposedly discussed Boyd's client list with a rival firm. Gregory's mind raced. I never made those calls. I believe you. But the evidence looks bad. They're filing an injunction to freeze your payments and void the settlement. Who's the rival firm? Next-Gen Infrastructure. Gregory laughed. It was a bitter sound. Of course. Roger's company. He's claiming I shared information with myself. The theory is you're working with them. That the whole settlement was a setup to get paid and then jump ship to help Roger's new venture. Clint paused. Greg, this is exactly the kind of thing that could invalidate everything. If a judge believes you negotiated in bad faith. When's the hearing? Monday. 2 days. Gregory hung up and stared at his computer. Roger was making one last play. Frame Gregory for exactly what Roger himself was doing, use it to void the settlement, and probably pursue criminal charges. But Roger had made a mistake. He'd assumed Gregory wasn't recording everything. Gregory spent the next 6 hours compiling evidence. Every email, every system log, every document that showed the real timeline. The data theft had started months before Gregory's firing. Roger and Marco had been planning next-gen infrastructure long before the settlement negotiations. At 9 p.m., his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Perkins? This is Pamela Dudley. Gregory tensed. Ms. Dudley, how did you get this number? I need to talk to you. About the acquisition. About what Roger Boyd asked me to do. She sounded frightened. Can we meet? Why would I meet with you? You're the reason my wife thinks I'm having an affair. That's why I need to talk to you. That wasn't real. Roger asked me to. He said it would help the acquisition. But I didn't understand what he was really doing until now. Gregory's instincts screamed trap. Send me an email. Detail everything. I'll review it with my attorney. He'll kill me if I put it in writing. Please. 1 hour. There's a coffee shop on Henderson, The Grind. I'll be there at 10 p.m. She hung up before Gregory could refuse. He sat for a long moment, then called Clint. Don't go. Clint said immediately. It's obviously a setup. What if it's not? What if she actually has information? Then she can give it to me in a deposition. Greg, you're smarter than this. Gregory knew Clint was right. But something in Pamela's voice had sounded genuine. Fear. Regret. At 9:45, he got in his car. The Grind was a small place, mostly empty at this hour. Pamela sat in a back corner booth, nursing coffee. She looked exhausted. Gregory slid in across from her, phone recording in his pocket. Talk, he said. Roger approached me 8 months ago, Pamela began. Before the acquisition talks even started. He said if I helped him with something, he'd make sure the acquisition went through and I'd keep my position as CTO of the combined company. Help him with what? Creating evidence of an affair between you and me. Dinners where we'd be seen together. Text messages he'd draft and I'd send. He said it was just to give him leverage in case you caused problems during the integration. Gregory's jaw clenched. And you agreed. I didn't know what he was planning. I thought it was just corporate politics. But then he fired you, and you fought back, and I realized he'd been setting you up all along. Pamela leaned forward. Now he's threatening me. Says if I don't testify that we were involved, that you shared confidential information with me about Boyd's clients, he'll fire me and make sure I never work again. So you're here to what? Apologize. I'm here to warn you, and to ask for your help. She pulled out a flash drive. This is everything. All the communications with Roger. The real timeline. Proof that he orchestrated the whole affair story. Gregory looked at the drive like it might explode. Why should I trust you? Because if Roger wins Monday, I lose everything too. He's planning to dismantle TechCore and fold the pieces into NextGen. My team, my company, it'll all disappear. Her voice broke. I made a mistake trusting him. I'm trying to fix it. Gregory took the drive. If this is another trick. It's not. I swear. He stood to leave, then paused. Does Victoria know? That it was all fake? Pamela shook her head. Roger told Caroline to show her only the texts, not the context. He wanted to isolate you. Gregory walked out, drive clenched in his fist. He spent the weekend analyzing Pamela's evidence. It was damning. Emails showing Roger's instructions, drafts of the texts Pamela was supposed to send, even a recording where Roger coached her on how to act around Gregory at company dinners. Sunday night, Gregory called Victoria. I can't talk right now, she said. I have proof. About Pamela. It was all Roger's setup. Please, just let me show you. Greg, stop. Caroline explained everything. How you'd try to manipulate me, make Dad look like the villain. Caroline is lying to you. She and Marco are part of this. They're stealing from Boyd Technologies to fund their own company, and they're using you to keep me silent. Silence. Victoria, please. I love you. I've only ever tried to protect you. I can't do this right now, she said, and hung up. Gregory sat in the dark, the evidence sitting on his desk, and realized Roger had been more clever than he'd thought. Roger wasn't just trying to win in court. He was trying to destroy everything Gregory cared about. Monday morning, Gregory and Clint walked into the courthouse. Larry Scott was there with Roger and Marco, looking confident. The hearing was in front of Judge Santiago Pearson, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd built her career on corporate litigation. Boyd Technologies presented first. Larry Scott laid out their case. Gregory Perkins had negotiated a settlement in bad faith, secretly working with NextGen Infrastructure, sharing confidential client information, all while pretending to be adversarial. We have emails, Larry said, showing communication between Mr. Perkins and NextGen principals. We have phone records. We have testimony from Pamela Dudley, TechCore's CEO, confirming that Mr. Perkins discussed Boyd Technologies' clients with her inappropriately. Where is Ms. Dudley? Judge Pearson asked. Available for deposition, Your Honor. She's prepared to testify. Mr. Frederick? Judge Pearson turned to Clint. Your Honor, this is a manufactured case built on manufactured evidence. The emails cited were forged. The phone records are misrepresented. And Ms. Dudley's testimony, should she give it, will be perjury. Strong accusations, Judge Pearson said. We have proof, Clint replied, and nodded to Gregory. Gregory stood and presented the flash drive. This contains the actual communications between Roger Boyd and Pamela Dudley. It shows a months-long conspiracy to frame me for corporate espionage, to create false evidence of an affair, and to manipulate the settlement process. Roger stood. That's. Sit down, Mr. Boyd, Judge Pearson said. She inserted the drive into her computer and spent 15 minutes reviewing the contents. Her expression grew increasingly severe. Mr. Scott, she said finally, did you review any of this evidence before filing? Larry Scott had gone pale. I relied on my client's representations. Your clients appear to have lied to you. Judge Pearson looked at Roger. Mr. Boyd, these communications show a deliberate attempt to suborn perjury and manufacture evidence. Do you have an explanation? Roger's face was crimson. Those files are fabricated. Perkins probably created them himself. They include your voice, Mr. Boyd, coaching Ms. Dudley, unless you're suggesting Mr. Perkins is also a master forger. Marco stood. Your Honor, if we could request a recess to review. Denied. Mr. Frederick, what is your client seeking? Clint stood smoothly. Enforcement of the settlement agreement. Sanctions against Mr. Boyd and Mr. Wilkins for frivolous litigation and attempted fraud. And a restraining order preventing any further attempts to interfere with Mr. Perkins' business relationships. Judge Pearson reviewed her notes. Settlement agreement is enforced. All payments stand. Boyd Technologies will pay Mr. Perkins' legal fees. She looked at Roger. Mr. Boyd, you're fortunate I'm not referring this to the DA's office. But if you set foot in this courthouse again with manufactured evidence, I will. She banged her gavel. Gregory and Clint walked out. Behind them, they could hear Roger screaming at Larry Scott. We won, Clint said. Not yet, Gregory replied. Not until Victoria knows the truth. Chapter 7, The Counter-Strike. Gregory drove directly to Caroline's house. Victoria's car was in the driveway. He parked and walked to the door, the flash drive in his pocket. Caroline answered, her expression hardening. You're not welcome here. I need to talk to Victoria. She doesn't want to see you. Caroline, I have evidence. About your father's conspiracy. About the fake affair. About NextGen Infrastructure stealing from Boyd Technologies. He met her eyes. About your involvement in all of it. Caroline's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You're listed as an officer of NextGen. You helped create the false evidence against me. And you've been poisoning Victoria against me to protect yourself. That's insane. Who's at the door? Victoria appeared behind her sister. Gregory held up the flash drive. Everything's on here. The real story. Please, just look at it. Victoria hesitated. Caroline put a hand on her arm. He's manipulating you. Let her decide, Gregory said. Victoria took the drive. I'll look at it. But if this is more lies, Greg, we're done. Completely. It's not lies. It's the truth Roger didn't want you to know. He left before Caroline could argue further. That night, Gregory's phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Victoria, I saw everything, she said. Her voice was raw. The recordings. The emails. What Dad did to you. To us. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. Caroline tried to delete the files. I caught her. We had a fight. Greg, she admitted it. All of it. She said they were just trying to protect the family business. By destroying me? She actually said that. It's just business. Victoria's voice broke. My own sister. My father. How did I not see it? Because you love them. You're supposed to trust family. Can you forgive me? For doubting you. Gregory closed his eyes. There's nothing to forgive. Roger's been playing this game for decades. You couldn't have known. I'm coming home. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. An hour later, Victoria pulled into the driveway. Gregory met her at the door. She fell into his arms, crying. I'm so sorry, she whispered. For everything. We're going to be okay, Gregory said. I promise. They spent the rest of the night talking. Victoria told him about the confrontation with Caroline, about calling her father and being told to choose sides, about the moment she realized Roger had been using her as a weapon against Gregory for years. What do we do now, she asked. Gregory pulled her close. Now we make sure this never happens to anyone else. The next morning, Gregory made 3 calls. First, to the Boyd Technologies Board of Directors. He requested an emergency meeting to discuss irregularities in executive conduct. Second, to Pamela Dudley. I need you to testify, to the board, about everything Roger asked you to do. He'll destroy me. He can't. Not anymore. And if you help me take him down, I'll make sure you land on your feet. Third, to Jerome Sutton, TechCore's original CTO, who'd been pushed out when the acquisition went through. Want to help me burn down next-gen infrastructure? Jerome laughed. I thought you'd never ask. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday. Gregory spent the week building an airtight case. He found more victims, employees Roger had fired over the years, contractors who'd been stiffed, rivals who'd been sabotaged. All of them had stories. Gregory documented everything. Thursday night, Marco called. You've won, okay? Is that what you want to hear? You beat us. Just leave Dad alone. He's had enough. Has he? Gregory asked. Because from where I'm sitting, he's gotten away with this behavior for decades. How many lives has he ruined, Marco? He built that company from nothing. I built that company. Me. And hundreds of other people whose work Roger took credit for. Gregory's voice was hard. This ends Friday. Marco hung up. Friday morning, Gregory walked into the Boyd Technologies boardroom with Clint, Victoria, Pamela Dudley, and Jerome Sutton. The board members, 7 of them, including 2 institutional investors and a former senator, looked confused. Roger sat at the head of the table, Marco beside him. Neither looked well. What is this about? Asked Don Hutchinson, the lead institutional investor. Corporate theft, Gregory said. He laid out the evidence methodically. The data exfiltration, next-gen infrastructure, the false evidence, the pattern of abuse spanning Roger's entire tenure as CEO. This is ridiculous, Roger said. Perkins is a disgruntled employee trying to. Mr. Boyd, Senator Young Bentley interrupted. Let him finish. Pamela testified about Roger's conspiracy. Jerome detailed how Roger had stolen TechCore's intellectual property during the acquisition. Gregory presented financial documents showing Roger had been funneling company resources to NextGen for months. By the end, Roger was ashen. We'll need to investigate these allegations, Don Hutchinson said carefully. We've already investigated, Gregory replied. I've given you everything you need. The question is what you'll do with it. The board went into executive session. Gregory, Victoria, and the others waited in a conference room. Do you think they'll act? Victoria asked. They have to. If this goes public, the stock price crashes. Their fiduciary duty requires them to remove Roger. 2 hours later, Don Hutchinson emerged. The board has voted to place Roger Boyd on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation. Marco Wilkins has resigned. We're asking you, Mr. Perkins, to serve as interim CTO while we sort this out. Gregory shook his head. I appreciate the offer, but no. I'm done with Boyd Technologies. What I want is for you to hire Jerome Sutton as CTO and Pamela Dudley as Chief Strategy Officer. They earned it. Don Hutchinson looked surprised but nodded. We can discuss that. As they left the building, Victoria squeezed Gregory's hand. You could have taken his job, been CEO eventually. I don't want his job. I want him to know he lost. That evening, Gregory and Victoria sat on their back porch, watching the sunset. What happens to Dad now? Victoria asked. The investigation will take months. If the evidence holds, and it will, he'll be forced to resign. Criminal charges are possible, depending on what else they find. And us. We start over. New projects. New clients. Maybe I finally start that consulting firm I've been thinking about. Victoria leaned against him. I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything from the start. You were protecting me. I was protecting us both. But I should have trusted you more. They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned purple and orange. Gregory's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You destroyed my life. I hope you're proud. Roger. Gregory showed Victoria, who shook her head. Don't respond. But Gregory typed, you destroyed your own life. I just made sure everyone knew about it. He hit send, then blocked the number. Is it over? Victoria asked. Almost, Gregory said. Chapter 8, The Reckoning. 2 weeks later, Roger Boyd was formally removed as CEO of Boyd Technologies. The investigation had uncovered even more than Gregory had suspected. Roger had been manipulating stock options for years, awarding himself packages that the board never approved. He'd created multiple shell companies to hide personal expenses. And NextGen Infrastructure had been just one of several schemes to siphon money from the company he'd claimed to be protecting. The board voted unanimously to terminate him for cause. No severance. No golden parachute. Roger Boyd walked out of the building he'd run for 23 years with nothing but a cardboard box and an escort from security. Gregory wasn't there to see it. He didn't need to be. He was in his new office, a small space in a co-working building, meeting with his first clients as the founder of Perkins Infrastructure Solutions. Jerome Sutton had joined as a partner. Together, they'd already signed contracts with 3 of Boyd Technologies' former clients, companies that trusted Gregory more than they'd ever trusted Roger. But the real victory came on a Tuesday afternoon, when Caroline called Victoria. I need to talk to you, Caroline said. Her voice was small. They met at a coffee shop, neutral ground. Gregory waited in the car while Victoria went inside. 30 minutes later, Victoria emerged, eyes red but expression resolute. What did she say? Gregory asked as she got in the car. She apologized. Said she'd been blind to who Dad really was. That she'd chosen the wrong side. Victoria buckled her seatbelt. I told her I needed time. That forgiveness wasn't automatic. How do you feel? Sad. Angry. Relieved. Victoria took his hand. Mostly relieved. Like I can finally see clearly. The legal proceedings dragged on for months. Roger's attorneys tried every strategy, claiming he was a scapegoat, that Gregory had orchestrated a coup, that the evidence was fabricated. None of it stuck. In October, Roger Boyd was indicted on 17 counts of corporate fraud, embezzlement, and theft. Marco pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for testimony against his father-in-law. Caroline, who'd played a smaller role, avoided criminal charges but lost her position at Boyd Technologies. The trial became national news. Gregory was called to testify. He walked into the courthouse with Victoria beside him. Roger sat at the defense table, looking decades older than he had 9 months ago. Their eyes met for a moment. Gregory felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. Just a quiet certainty that justice, delayed as it had been, was finally being served. His testimony was clinical. He presented the evidence, answered questions from both prosecutors and defense attorneys, and never once let emotion color his words. The facts spoke for themselves. Roger's attorney tried to paint Gregory as vengeful, as someone who destroyed a company out of spite. Mr. Perkins, the attorney asked, isn't it true that you held Boyd Technologies hostage? That you deliberately sabotaged systems to force them to meet your demands? I revoked a license to my personal intellectual property, Gregory replied calmly. It was within my legal rights. But you knew it would devastate the company. I knew it would get their attention. And I knew that without leverage, they would continue to exploit me and others like me. So this was about revenge. Gregory met Roger's eyes. This was about justice. There's a difference. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Guilty on all counts. Roger Boyd was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. His assets were seized to pay restitution to Boyd Technologies and the dozens of people he defrauded over the years. Gregory watched the sentencing remotely, sitting in his office with Victoria and Clint. When the judge announced the sentence, Victoria squeezed Gregory's hand. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I can finally move forward," Gregory said. Chapter 9, New Foundation. 1 year later, Perkins Infrastructure Solutions occupied the entire 10th floor of a downtown Dallas building. 37 employees, clients across 12 countries, revenue that had already exceeded Gregory's wildest projections. Jerome Sutton ran the technical side. Pamela Dudley, after a stint at Boyd Technologies, had joined as VP of Business Development. Together, they built something Gregory had never had at Boyd Technologies, a company culture based on respect, transparency, and actual meritocracy. Boyd Technologies had survived the scandal, barely. New leadership had stabilized the company, but it had lost its market dominance. Many of their best clients had followed Gregory to his new venture. Gregory stood in his office, looking out at the city. A knock on the door. "Got a minute?" Victoria asked. She'd started working at the company 6 months ago, heading up HR and company culture. It had been her idea. She wanted to help build something better than what her father had created. "Always," Gregory said. She sat on the edge of his desk. "I saw the news. Dad's appealing the sentence. He won't win. I know, but I wanted to make sure you knew, in case it brings anything up." Gregory turned to face her. "I'm okay. Really. That part of my life is over." "Is it? Sometimes I see you looking at old Boyd Technologies announcements, checking their stock price. Just keeping track of the competition." He smiled. "I'm not obsessed, if that's what you're worried about." Victoria studied him. "You know what I think? I think you're one of the strongest people I've ever known. What Dad did to you would have broken most people. But you didn't just survive, you built something better." "We built something better," Gregory corrected. "You, me, Jerome, Pamela. All of us." She kissed him. "I love you, you know that." "I know. I love you too." His phone buzzed. A message from Doug Stone, the former Boyd Technologies security guard. "Hey, Mr. Perkins, my daughter just got accepted to MIT for computer science. She wanted me to thank you for writing that recommendation letter. We couldn't have done it without your scholarship fund." Gregory smiled. The Perkins Foundation for Technical Education had launched 3 months ago, funded by his settlement and profits from the new company. It provided scholarships to underprivileged students pursuing STEM degrees. 37 students this year. He hoped for hundreds more in the years to come. "Good news?" Victoria asked. "Doug's daughter got into MIT. That's wonderful. We should send her something. Already planned. Care package with some books I found helpful, plus a mentor connection with one of our junior engineers." Victoria shook her head, smiling. "See? This is what I mean. You could be bitter. You could be focused on what was taken from you. Instead, you're helping other people build futures." "I had help when I needed it," Gregory said simply. "Just paying it forward." That evening, they had dinner with Clint and his wife. The conversation was light, stories about their kids, vacation plans, industry gossip. "You ever think about what you'd tell your younger self?" Clint asked. "The guy who started at Boyd Technologies 19 years ago." Gregory considered. "I'd tell him to document everything, to trust his instincts when something feels wrong, and to remember that loyalty is earned, not owed." "Dark," Clint said. "Realistic," Gregory corrected. "But I'd also tell him that the hardest moments create the most opportunity. That sometimes you have to burn down everything you built to create something better." "Would you do it again?" Victoria asked. "Knowing everything that happened?" Gregory took her hand. "Every choice, every risk, every painful moment. Because it led to this." Late that night, Gregory sat in his home office, reviewing proposals for the next quarter. His phone buzzed. An email from Marco Wilkins. The subject line, "I'm sorry." Gregory hesitated, then opened it. "Mr. Perkins, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what we did to you, what I participated in. I've spent the last year in therapy, trying to understand how I became the person who helped destroy your career and your marriage. The best explanation I have is that I was so focused on pleasing Roger, on earning his approval, that I stopped questioning whether what we were doing was right. You fought back. You won. And honestly, I'm glad you did. Because you exposed something that needed to be exposed. Not just the fraud, but the culture of exploitation and abuse that Roger had built. I'm working at a small tech startup now. Entry level. Learning to code. Actually, because I realized I never understood the technical side, I just manipulated people who did. It's humbling. I don't know if this means anything to you, but I wanted you to know that what you did changed my life. Made me realize I needed to be better. I hope you and Victoria are happy. You deserve to be. Marco. Gregory read the email twice, then closed his laptop without responding. Some debts couldn't be repaid with words. But as he turned off the lights and headed to bed, where Victoria was already asleep, he felt something shift. The anger he'd carried for so long, anger at Roger, at Marco, at the injustice of it all, had finally loosened its grip. He'd spent 19 years building infrastructure for a man who'd never valued him. Now he was building something for himself, for people he trusted, for a future that was finally, truly his. Gregory climbed into bed beside his wife. She stirred, reaching for him in her sleep. "Everything okay?" she murmured. "Everything's perfect," he said. And for the first time in years, he meant it. The end. Epilogue. 5 years later. Perkins Infrastructure Solutions had become one of the fastest-growing technology firms in the Southwest. Gregory had been featured in Forbes, invited to speak at MIT's commencement, and approached by venture capitalists interested in taking the company public. He declined the last offer. PAS would remain private, employee-owned, a testament to the idea that companies could succeed without exploitation. Roger Boyd had served 4 years of his sentence before being released on parole. He'd moved to a small town in Montana, working in IT support at a local school district. Gregory had heard through industry contacts that Roger was quiet now, broken. A man who'd once commanded boardrooms, now helping teachers reset their passwords. Caroline had reconciled with Victoria after years of therapy and genuine remorse. Their relationship would never be what it was, but they were building something new. Marco had thrived at his startup, which had been acquired by a major tech company. He'd sent Gregory an invitation to his wedding. Gregory had declined, but sent a generous gift. And Doug Stone's daughter had graduated from MIT summa cum laude and joined Perkins Infrastructure Solutions as a junior architect. The cycle, finally, was broken. Gregory Perkins had gone to war with a corrupt system and won not just a battle, but a lasting victory, not through destruction, but through building something better. And in the end, that was the best revenge of all. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.